Hey everybody, thank you so much for coming out to Beer in SEO here in Raleigh. Thank you so much. Hey, I don't know, I see a lot of new faces here tonight. We really always want to go ahead and thank the community for showing up for these events. We really appreciate the speakers that we're able to get, but we really appreciate you guys as well. Who we really appreciate are the people who pay for all of the drinks in the space, which we have our sponsors. Keith back there, his company, Ecom Integrate, they're a sponsor. We also, we also have a couple of other companies, Go Fish Digital, fantastic agency in the area. And you guys knew Adapt Partners, but recently they went through a rebranding, and now they're Locomotive Agency, and we want to thank them for their sponsorship as well. We can clap, yeah. Now, keep in mind, two active agencies in the area. Go Fish Digital, they are actually hiring right now. So you guys, you know, if you came out here, maybe looking for a new job or something of that sort, they're hiring for content and a couple of digital media people as well. I think SEO and SEM. So if you guys are interested, know that they are actively hiring. And Locomotive is looking for an SEO director at this time, aren't they? So, you know, plenty of opportunities here tonight as well. Now, I'm going to cheat. Usually I don't read off of here, but I wanted to go ahead and do a proper introduction to these guys who came out to... I'm not forgetting anything else right now, am I, JR? No? Okay, good. Just everything. So I want to introduce you guys to our speakers tonight. And again, I'm sorry. Claye Stokes, GM for Reviews.com. and VP of Digital Media at Red Ventures, and Joe Mueller, pronounced it right? Fantastic. He's the Senior Analyst at Red Ventures. Now, they're going to talk about Knime. I have not heard of Knime until I read this, so I don't have a lot to say about that. To source data, scrape content, thread multiple data sources into a single report to automate your menial SEO tasks. I have a lot of those, so I really look forward to hearing this. And on that note, I'm going to hand this over. There you go.
And thank you. Thanks for the introduction. We're both excited to be here. It was a small drive from Charlotte this afternoon, but we made the trek along with Cyrus here. Raise your hand, Cyrus. He's our data science director, who's part of our team within Red Ventures, who's kudos to JR. He's been collaborating a lot with us lately. It's been really fun to learn from him and branch out a little bit in the Carolinas with those of you in Raleigh. There's not much of a digital marketing hub in Charlotte, so this gives us a great chance to come out and mingle with other people that do the same thing that we do every single day, but outside of our walls. That was one of my New Year's resolutions for this year, getting out, networking a little bit more than I typically do. Fun fact, my master closet smells exactly like this room does because I'm in the middle of my first brew. I got a little home brewing kit for Christmas. It's been really fun to go through that experience. I'm 2 weeks away from what will probably be a terrible IPA. Excited to be here. Quick intro to Red Ventures. Just for those of you that haven't heard of us, we're a multi-billion-dollar company, probably the biggest company in Fort Mill, South Carolina. You've never heard of. Joke that we like to tell. We have a large portfolio of brands that span financial services categories, health categories, sites like reviews.com, Healthline, and we span a few different locations across the globe, primarily out of Charlotte, North Carolina, which is our headquarters. We have offices in Brazil and in London and across the US. We are hiring right now for a lot of roles that are probably relevant to an audience like this, so if you know anybody, please let them know and then have them drop one of our names as a referral. We're excited to talk about Knime today. So Joe's going to kind of walk you through what it is. You can move to the next slide. Joe's going to walk you through what Knime is. It's kind of a game-changing open source, so totally free for you to use with your teams, analytics tool that was built for bioinformatics data scientists. So it's incredibly robust tool that's made for crunching massive data sets, kind of high scale, but in a user-friendly way that doesn't require knowing a single line of code. So how many of you, first of all, have heard of Knime before, just so I can kind of gauge the room? Okay, that's helpful. How many of you have used an Excel macro before, or are aware of what an Excel macro can do? Yeah, bigger audience. So Knime is kind of like a macro in that you can tell it to do very specific tasks that replicate an entire process, that replicate, for example, pulling 100 different Google Analytics profiles into one report that you could send to all of your agency clients. Or if you want to pull in links built, or pull in API metrics from just about anywhere, it can read data from virtually any data source, scraping the web, pulling from any database that's mainstream. It can parse emails, hit SMTP servers, and then it can push that data out after it has transformed the data through any number of steps that you set. We train all of our SEO analysts on Knime at about their 6 to 12 month point after joining the company, because it kind of explodes their time to value and their ability to work smarter, not harder, because it's a given that they're working their ass off and they couldn't possibly work any harder. But if we can work more intelligently with tools like this at our disposal and with smarter data, which this tool can also provide, we can get faster results. So with that set up, I'll hand it over to Joe to jump into Knime, and we'll walk you through some examples.
Yeah. So bottom line is, all of us do things that are a drain on our energy, a drain on the amount of time we can spend on important things, and take us away from doing higher level thinking, right? And it's those tasks that we can learn to automate well, and even if we're not the people automating it, we can train our team to do it. And so the problem is that all of us have some sort of a part of our job that's not ideal for us to spend lots of time doing, but we just have to do. And so Knime is something that helps you solve that problem. It's like Clay said, it's an analytics platform that helps you wrangle data, model and visualize the data, that helps you deploy and manage the data, and that helps you consume and optimize based upon that data. They've really done a good job selling themselves as a data science platform, but you don't need to use it for data science. You can do it for tons of other things. So don't necessarily let the marketing fool you. There's a video on how Knime works. I won't play it, but basically, I think Clay's going to speak to this a little bit, but each node does a task.
Yeah, so the way Knime is like a graphic user interface GUI that anyone that's not familiar with code can use, where you kind of drag and drop these little nodes. So those little yellow icons could do just about anything. There are nodes that do loops if you need to loop through a huge data set. There are nodes that do math equations, that run NLP models, that convert something from a web page into a document so that you can run a really fancy content analysis. There are simple ones like this that just take a data set like a spreadsheet and sort it. So the equivalent of in Excel saying like sort by descending or ascending. Those nodes are connected through a connector. You literally just click and hold one of the node's little black triangles and drag it to the next node, and that infers that you're going to pass the data from that node straight into the next node to do the next thing to your data set. So in this case, you might be hitting an API, and this is a screenshot from an example I'll show you in the next slide. You're going to hit an API, like for example the Ahrefs API, and then you're going to use the JSON path to grab the output from the JSON API and then parse that into meaningful columns in your spreadsheet of data. And on the far right is an example. So you might feed Knime a CSV or just a kind of notepad.txt list of hundreds of domains. So what you see over here is kind of a SEMrush export of PC Mag's biggest SEO competitors. And then on the right is a column where you can see the ahrefs.com kind of API string that's stringing together the full API call to go get the number of LRDs for every single one of those domains. So if you want to hit next, I'll walk you through a quick example. So these are kind of number and color coordinated. I know it looks like spaghetti, but bear with me here. The first step here, you might load that CSV reader that has a list of sites that are competitors of yours or of someone like PC Mag. That second step in a single node would then append that for every single domain that you first fed it into this API v2.ahrefs.com target equals PC Mag or whatever. So now you have an API string and you're ready to make the call and go ask Ahrefs for the number of backlinks and the number of like do follow links that point into those competitive URLs. So you can think about like any API, any data set. Maybe you want domain authority from Moz. Maybe you want URL rating from Ahrefs or something like that. You just change the API call a little bit in the node setting, and then it will append that for you. Then you jump to the blue number 3. We hit the API and we pull back those actual values. And so you can see this little JSON object up above in the blue number 3, where you have all of the metrics returned for PC Mag, the number of backlinks, referring pages, a lot of crap that we don't need. And so the next one, number 4, parses that JSON and gets us and narrows it down to fields that matter. So linked root domains, ref IPs, backlinks, and so on. And then another one like number 5 could filter those columns, take out the junk in that second column so that you could then write it back to a nice little CSV, and you could use that to build some fancy charts in Excel, upload it to Google Sheets, visualize in Data Studio, or kind of work with whatever data set you need.
And so the idea here is I'll walk us through sort of 4 example workflows that I've used in the past. They're not super complex. They're supposed to sort of put on display some of the capabilities that Knime has, and then your imaginations can like run with them, right? And you can figure out what to do. So the first one is Google Auto Suggest monitoring. So this is something that most people don't do or don't keep a record of because it's just time consuming. If you have 100 keywords that you want to check what auto suggest is, that would take a significant amount of time to be able to check at scale. And so what this Knime workflow does is it creates that list of all the words that you want to check for auto suggest so that you can monitor things. And then it runs it through a process where it hits the XML of the AutoSuggest API, extracts the recommendations, numbers them, and then stores them in a CSV. And so you could do like a Windows job to run this every single day, and every day at noon, your computer just automatically runs this process and then sends you an email when you have a change in the AutoSuggest. And so the concepts here is you can go from a list and create a much, like a whole process built on a list of seed keywords. This is important. Say you want to do keyword research. You could create a loop like this that takes all the auto-suggests for your seed and then gets all the auto-suggests for all your auto-suggests, and then gets all your auto-suggests for all the auto-suggests, and then gets all the auto-suggests of all the auto-suggests of all the auto-suggests, right? So it's just this endless loop, and you can iterate as many times as you want, and you literally lose nothing by doing that other than your machine has to do the work for you. And so like creating a record of auto-suggest is like the core idea that if you can do that, you can replicate it over and over again because you don't have to do it, your machine can do it for you. The second thing that it can do is it can take your current record and check against your historical record. So if you think about what you would do as a human being, you would look at it, you would compare each line, and notice when something has changed. Knime can do that for you as well. It's a very simple task when you break it down to those like discrete things that your human mind is doing, but you don't need to use your human mind to do it. You can train a computer to do it on your behalf. Finally, the most important thing is you want to be notified if there's a change. And so you can use some rule engines to help determine, hey, is there a change? And if there's a change, it can take a specific action. It can send you an email, and it can notify you of the exact changes that you ran into. And finally, that's the if switch with the optional ending. If there's no change, it just runs silently and doesn't send you an email. But if it does detect a change, that's when you want to be notified, and it'll shoot you an email with the change that it detected. The reason that this can be incredibly valuable is this is like a real life case that we saw in our business where the auto suggest had a material impact on our ability to get clicks because there was a very popular misspelling for a very popular brand that we were ranking very well on. And when Google decided to remove that misspelling from all the auto suggests, we saw traffic decrease pretty significantly. And so being aware of that change, we were able to communicate that to business leaders very, very effectively and in a very short amount of time. We didn't have to worry about what was happening because we knew what was happening. Another sort of, like pulling analytics, right? It's something that everybody does. Everybody wants to know how their website is going, is doing. But when you have to do that across 100 properties, 150 properties, the amount of time that it would take you and your team to accomplish that task is big, right? You have to hire more people, you have to get more process, you have to get an engineer to pipe that data into a place for you. But a program like Knime is something that can just do it for you. You know, if I imagine what I have to do just to get these 50,000 profiles or URL level information, because I want to do analysis on URL level things, I have to set to 5,000, export, go to the next page, export, go to the next page, export. I have to do that 10 times for every single property, which would consume a lot of time and isn't very useful. But what Knime can do is you can tell Knime to do that task for you. You can tell it to pull a whole year's worth of information at the URL with 7, 8, 10, 20 custom dimensions that you care about for your business. And you can just pull it, and it can go through every single one of your websites one by one, or 10 at once, or 20 at once, depending on how you set up your workflow. And it can print out all that data in a way that you need, as a CSV, as an Excel, as any of those file formats. Knime also has a capability, if you choose to print Excel, it'll open the file for you, right? So as soon as it's done writing to the file, it just opens. And that saves time, especially if you have to open 100 files, right? So it's very cool, very powerful. So what this, sorry, I don't think I mentioned this. All these workflows are going to be available for you guys if you'd like them. So just email me, email Claye. We'll send them to you. There's no proprietary information, right? It's all open source. You can just use them, play around with them. When I learned Knime, the best way to learn it was to do a workflow that somebody else had done, right? It helps cement sort of the concepts in your mind. It helps you understand the process. The other thing that Knime really helps with is thinking through problems. Because a lot of times we come up to a problem and we don't know the solution. What Knime forces you to do is think about each problem in each incremental step, right? What do I have to do to get my end result? I want all my data by day, by engine, and by device. If that's my end state, and I know how my raw data is formed, how do I get to that point? And you have to think through, okay, I have to aggregate this way, I have to do all this, etc. So back to pulling Google Analytics at scale. You can set time periods automatically. Knime lets you do that. You can also pull the GA data, and it hits their API, so everything that's available to you in your Google Analytics interface is available for you to double click and pull into your export here in Knime. You can also like tag things with regex. You can extract additional information. You can manipulate the URL strings. If you use query parameters and you don't want that, but you want it in GA, but you don't want it for your analysis, right? You can do all that sort of stuff instantly, technically not instantly, but no amount of your time does it take to do it because you just tell the machine to run it and it'll work. And then you can append data to CSVs rather than writing new ones, which is cool if you want to pull data by day. And the business impact is it saves time on reporting.
Hey, really quick, that literally just reminded me of a use case. Does anyone here do like local SEO, Google Maps listings? A few hands. So you're probably familiar with how hard it is to get to like review data in bulk, or maybe it's easier now with the API. But in 2017, when the API was still application only, and we were going back and forth, we were managing Maps SEO for a large kind of nationwide wireless retailer. And so they had 650 locations, and we needed to report back to them on review generation across each locations. How many net new reviews did they acquire since the last time they saw a report? What was the average rating of those? What was the best? What was the worst? What should they address? And that data, for those of you that are in this, is not available through a great API, or at least it wasn't then. And so we wrote a Knime flow that would essentially launch a browser, type in the username and password for the account, log into the account, and then navigate profile by profile and scrape those pages to pull that data in, throw it into a database, and then that database drove all of our reporting for that client.
Yeah. I mean, there's literally anything that you've done, you can do with Knime, except for like, think like a human, right? Any manipulation, any of that sort of stuff, as long as you can think about it in the discrete steps that it takes to do it. Accessing APIs is also something that's really easy and doable. You can manipulate strings. This is accessing Ahrefs API. And Claye sort of already walked through this, so I won't sort of belabor the point with this one. The last one before doing sort of a little bit of a live demo inside of Knime is large-scale data analytics. So there was a project that we worked on at Red Ventures where we got approximately 60 million insurance quotes. So we got access to this really cool tool. It let us get quotes for a profile of a driver, and we went crazy and produced 60 million quotes. So there were, I think it's 36 different driver profiles in every zip code in the country with a variety of vehicles. And using Knime, we were able to produce a report on millennials and auto insurance. And so we looked at a variety of factors from like vehicle to using state minimums or different varieties of coverage. We looked at like what states, your marital status. We looked at whether you were a homeowner or a renter. And we looked at all these variables at a whole bunch of different grains. We looked at it at the zip code level, the county level, the state level, and the national level. We had to, the way we got the data back was like very, not very, it's hard to explain because insurance is super complicated, but oftentimes we would get a lot more information than we needed. We just needed like what portion of the company was actually underwriting information, like underwriting users today, and that was hidden in the data, but like we had to apply our understanding of that to transform and manipulate the data. It was really difficult. We didn't have much engineer or data support at the time, and so it was just me and an engineer analyzing 60 million records of data. And so Knime was what was able to do it. Anybody know off the top of their head the limit of Excel? How many rows fit in Excel? About 1 million, right? And so I wasn't going to open 61 million record Excels on my computer and try to crunch those numbers, right? That just wasn't even a possibility, right? It would crash after opening 2. And so, but what Knime did is Knime allowed me to query state by state. So I could just batch process California's data all at once. And then from that, I could then like take the data and go it into different trees of data. Like one tree is just analyzing marital status. One tree of the analysis was just looking at your vehicle. One tree of the analysis was just looking at whether you owned or you rented, right? And so, but because the steps of the analysis were so similar, all I had to do was do one and then update the flow for all the little variables that I needed to do my analysis. I was also able to do this analysis at every like grain of geo. So I could do it at the zip code, I could do it at the city, I could do it at the county, and I could do it like at the state level, all within sort of the same structure, and produce that data in a way that was super easy for a front end to use like a geo map, right? A geospatial thingy data science, right? And so it still took hours to run. So I'm not like, it still took hours to run and process all the information, but without you know, a data scientist, without an engineer, and without much like support, 2 people were able to process 60 million records and produce really meaningful insights and information. And so Knime is really so powerful, right? There are so many projects that I've done that I've only been able to do because of Knime. You know, I've created my own text spinner that takes relevant information for, say, a zip code, if I'm building zip code level data, and extracts maybe something like that's very specific to that zip code from a data set that I have, inserts it into the copy of my page, adjusts the title of the page, and then logs into WordPress for me, and then pastes in the title, and then pastes in the copy of the page, and then selects the category for me, and then clicks publish. And I've published thousands of pages in this way. And so it's super powerful if you have the mind to think through, like, literally, what's the next step? What's the next thing that I would do if I was doing this in my browser? What's the next way that I analyze this data? And like, you know, if I pivot it, what is that doing? Okay, it's grouping by this, and then it's summing this. Like, all those things will empower you to use Knime effectively. Should I just move into a demo?
Yeah, quick live demo? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the last one. So just real, this is my, this is the auto suggest monitoring node. And I'm a little older, and so I used Publisher as a kid, like Microsoft Publisher. And so this is like where I imagine like you build all your stuff, like you do in Publisher. PowerPoint's another sort of good example.
No WordPerfect for you?
No WordPerfect. And so I just reset all the nodes, so you'll see that the nodes are yellow, which means that they're just waiting. They're just waiting for you, right? They just want you to press play, and they want you to do the work. And so the way that I have set this up is so the red around these is where you update your information. Right now it's set to download or to save stuff directly to my machine. But if you have the skills or the capabilities, you could tell, you know, to save it to BigQuery. You could tell it to put it into like an AWS instance. You could do so many things with Knime. But all you have to do is you can just Control A and then press play, and then it runs. And so right now it's hitting the Google Suggest API. It did it twice, and now it's done. And it checked for errors, and if there was, it sent me an email. I have my email notification sent off, so I don't know if there was an error or not. But just real quickly, going through sort of the configuration is like double-clicking opens the configuration, and then my seeds are what is my and I have never. You could literally add hundreds and hundreds of keywords here, and it wouldn't cost you anything more than the price to copy and paste. What this node does, it's adding, wherever there's a space, it's adding a plus. So that's just adding URL encoding to your seed keywords. And I'm actually calling it URL encoded seed. So it's good if you can name things well, which is not a strong suit of mine, by the way. And then this builds your Google Suggest API call. And so it's just joining the base string to your new URL encoded seed. And so if you're looking sort of kind of what goes on, you start with this. You have your seed and your...
That's a kind of like database spreadsheet view of the data set as it progresses from one step to another.
Yep. Then you just added your URL encoded seed column. And then you're adding your query. I like to use what are chunk loops. So this is a way to prevent you from getting like rate limited or cause problems. So the whole process will run before it starts the next process. So you don't always have to do it. It's just sort of my default to do it because I'm a scared person by nature. But you don't have to by any means.
So it takes it like one row at a time in that spreadsheet,
Yep.
and does all of the work in those subsequent nodes before coming back to the next row.
Right. So this took just one row at a time. This gets the request, like its name. And so now you have your API request. The status was a 200, and there's my XML body from the endpoint. This XPath is super helpful for SEOs. If you don't know XPath, encourage you to level up and learn it. But basically, you can extract, using XPath, all of the data in this XML. I've never seen volcanoes, and I actually don't think I have. So it's accurate. And then this column removes your data that you don't need. So you saw how it was like really, really messy and you didn't really need all that information. This sort of deletes it for you. It filters your columns. And then this adds a constant value of the date. So you know what day you got the information. And that's kind of the basic idea. This if switch is the last thing that I kind of wanted to tell you guys about. So the if switch, basically it has a yes or a no. And if it's yes, it goes to the top. And if it's no, it goes to the bottom. And so you just have to determine what do you want it to do if it's a yes, and what do you want to do if it's a no, and then tell it what to do.
Yeah, one other random use case. So I have a little pop quiz for everyone too. So the data here is a couple years old, so it may have completely changed. One weird use case that we used this for was for recruiting in like 2017. And so we used Knime to kind of fire up a browser, log into LinkedIn, and this is super against their terms of service. So I don't recommend it, and they're much better at like locking this shit down now. But we went like city by city searching for like SEOs across the entire United States, compiled all of that data for an analysis, and then married it with like census data of population throughout the country. I'll buy a beer if you can guess the city, fairly large city, but not one of the largest, that has the highest rate of SEOs per capita. We assumed Austin, but no, not Raleigh, unfortunately. Yeah, good guess, but no. San Diego, Seattle, no. We assumed Seattle or Austin or Silicon Valley or something. Philly, nope. Nope. I'm feeling good about keeping my money. It is. It's in the United States. It's on the. Uh, no. Salt Lake City.
Oh.
Of all cities, Salt Lake City has the highest rate of SEOs per capita of any city in America, as of 2017. So numbers could have shifted. Random.
Yeah.
So Knime has been transformational for our team. So we thought it would be valuable. It can make you a rock star, at work. It can accelerate what you do, automate things that you're sick of doing yourself, or maybe you're paying somebody that doesn't need to be on the team. Have at it. We're excited to answer any questions in a minute. Why don't y'all come up and grab another drink if you want another drink before we start Q&A.
Dude, that was awesome. That was incredible. Good job. Thank you. Yeah, that was cool.
Crazy shit, right?
Knime scares me.
You guys that don't know how to code, don't know Python, don't know anything.
I thought you
They
did a
get
good.
dangerous with this shit.
I thought you did a really good job of making, selling.
You should just learn some programming languages. You already do R. Yeah.
Loops are.
Yeah.
That's it. That's programming.
It's almost like better though. Like the way it like visually lays it out, it is almost like easier conceptually. But
I do need to learn many things.
It's valuable for exactly that, the non-engineer.
yeah, there's stuff you can hack together without creating.
So what we're going to do is just leave it open for Q&A right now. And I'm doing the thing to give people a chance because I see some people down back. I mean, I may have to go down there. I may have to say, Patrick, could you do something about this? That's what I'll probably end up doing. Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and hand the microphone over so that we can go ahead and just ask our questions.
Any questions? I can rush you the mic.
Have y'all done anything with machine learning workflows with Knime?
No.
Yeah.
So for machine learning workflows, Cyrus and his team really lead the way for anything data, like real data science modeling. We have a full staff team.
But Knime does have like out of the box machine learning things that you can train.
So not a direct answer to the question, I guess, but I know other SEOs at Red Ventures have built out workflows where they will reach out to the Google NLP API and like automatically categorize certain pieces of content or like certain potential like backlink prospects as this is in financial services or not, and like therefore I should care about it versus not, and they kind of use that as like a prioritization scheme for either their writers or their kind of content building stuff. So not sure if that answers the question, but.
Yeah, anything with an API, Google NLP API, Cortical, like all of the NLP solutions out there, we've dabbled with IBM Watson, We'll pipe data into it, content into it, run content analyses, but the real stuff is managed by the professionals.
So I have a two-part question. First part follows on what Patrick said, and are there any forecasting models based on the time series data within Knime? And then the second part of that is, you mentioned earlier that your entire team was getting trained on Knime, and obviously there are some API considerations and rate limiting with APIs as well as rate limiting with open services. How have you managed that with multiple team members hitting those same APIs?
It helps to have an almost unlimited budget because we we just crush our APIs all the time. Like multiple times a month, we're hitting Ahrefs API overages or SEMrush or Moz or whatever. So far, we rarely run into a problem that isn't justified. It doesn't have a good business case, and then we'll just fund more API credits. Knime does that little get request node that we had. Does have some like rate limiting concurrency settings, and so you can say based on the API documentation of whatever you're hitting, give it 50 milliseconds of space in between every call with no more than 1 to whatever number of concurrent threads. What was the other part of your question? Forecasting. Oh, forecasting. Is there a native forecasting node? I've only used like Facebook Profit.
Yeah.
Like you can. There's an R node, a Python node, and a JavaScript node. So anything, if you know any of those 3 languages, you can basically write anything custom into the process. So I've used R and Python for some of those packaged forecasting libraries, but I haven't. I'm not aware of like a.
It has one.
Native one.
I haven't used it personally.
Okay.
No. Yeah, but the like. To Clay's point, though, is say somebody does know those things and they just want to empower the rest of their team to be able to do it, they can create the workflow and then just share it, right? And then everyone can be able to run that workflow and get the same information as though Claye had run it, even though they're not Claye and they had no idea how to create it.
Easy. Thanks, guys.
So my last question, though, is you guys were going to LinkedIn, you were data mining nationally for candidates, and they frowned upon that. Oh, okay.
I'm speculating.
Okay, I gotcha. Well, thank you so much for coming out, you guys. I do want to let you guys know we've got a couple more events that are coming up. Next month we have Kevin Indig. He's going to be speaking. Now, we'll be at Clouds Brewery next month. I think it's February 12th. It is a Wednesday. And the following month of March, we have Tyler Reardon. He's I think the SEO director from Chewy.com. So we've got a great lineup coming up. And guys, I really appreciate you coming out from Charlotte. And thanks so much. We really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.